Alright, picture the scene. It's 1787 and you're at the Constitutional Convention. Your mission? To fix the American government. Pretty simple, right? Well, no. Just a few years earlier, Washington had kicked out the British and America had finally gained its freedom. Then came the Articles of Confederation, a disastrous form of government that nearly destroyed the entire nation. Now, it's the job of the delegates to fix the Articles of Confederation. Actually, Sarah realized that the Articles of Confederation don't actually record that. Correction. The articles have been thrown out, and now it is the job of the delegates to create an entirely new form of government for the United States. Here are the requirements. It must be a strong central government that can enact its will when it needs to, but also have power given to the states so both the central and state governments are equal. In addition, the rights of the people must be protected from government interference. In general, fix the problem found under the British and under the Articles. Good luck. Alright, gents, I've created the solution to our problem. I present the Constitution. Thank you. Allow me to walk you through it. You see, we have 7 articles that describe the various aspects of the central government. Starting with Article 1, we have the structure and power of Congress. We started with the House of Representatives, then the Senate, and of course, the senators are chosen by the state legislatures and not the people. Can't have both houses of Congress chosen by the masses. Am I right? That's true. It wasn't until the 17th Amendment that senators were chosen directly by a popular vote of the people of the state. We then move to the elections of members of Congress. In general, the states handle it. Section 5 is the powers and duties of Congress. 6 is about the compensation and rights of the members. 7 is the legislative process. I know Schoolhouse Rock won't be invented for a couple hundred years, but just think about that song, alright? 8 describe the 18 clauses Congress is allowed to make laws about. Interstate commerce, the Navy, declaring war, that kind of stuff. And the last section is the powers denied to Congress. Stuff like revoking the writ of habeas corpus. Hey, I didn't waste my time studying Latin. What does that mean? The right to challenge one's incarceration. No ex post facto laws. Again, you can't be punished for violating a law if the law wasn't a thing when you did that act. No after the fact laws. There's a bunch more stuff in there, but you get the gist. Also, Congress can't tax anybody. This one is also true, but they fix it in the 16th Amendment. Alright, let's move to Article 2, baby. Trust me, that one was the longest. This one is all about the president. Section 1 is how they can be elected. 2 is all about their powers and duties. 3 states they must give an address to Congress once a year. I believe future people will call this the State of the Union Address. And 4 is the impeachment process. See, that one was short. And the next is even shorter. Basically, the Supreme Court only really rules on disputes between the states and other minor complications involving laws to make sure that they are in line with the Constitution. Trust me, they will always be the weakest branch of the 3. They can never, ever become the most powerful branch. No way. Absolutely not. They are just a small check on the other 2 branches. No problems. Don't worry. Breezing through the rest of this, Article 4 describes federalism, basically how the states will interact with the national government and each other. They gotta respect each other's laws, and also respect the national government. Article 5 is the amendment process. We probably won't need to go into detail on this one for a while, but it's there just in case. Article 6 basically just says, we pay our debt, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and the last one just says we need 9 states to ratify. So, please sign here. I can't go home until 9 of you sign it. What the fuck was that? What? I think it's pretty good. Pretty good? Can I ask you this? Were you dropped on the head as a child? Because this looks like you spilled a can of spaghetti soup on some parchment and called it a government. Honestly, do you not remember like 20 minutes ago when we were living under the British throne and we had our rights thrown out the window? I can count on one hand the amount of rights protected in this pile of shit you call a government. You know what? Let's start at the beginning. Article 1. Now, the actual structure of Congress is alright, but there aren't really any rights of the people or states protected. There are some rights protected. Oh yeah, habeas corpus and ex post facto. I see you also put in no bill of attainder. Ooh la la. What does? It means you can't be punished without a trial. But these only pertain to people accused of committing a crime. I don't know about you, but I don't really plan on being a criminal, but I would still like to have my rights protected. There's no taxation for Congress there. Yeah, but for some reason, I don't think that part will last very long. Also, that last clause, the necessary and proper clause, the one that allows Congress to make laws that are necessary and proper for the government, yeah, that seems a little vague, doesn't it? Just speculating, but in the future, people might call this one the Elastic Clause, because it allows Congress to stretch their power. Moving on, Article 2. No rights for anybody protected in here. You see here, you've basically created a king. No, I haven't. Yes, you have. That oath of office allows the president to stretch his power in the name of defending the Constitution. What if he wants to use that power to stomp on the people or states, huh? Did you think about that? Next, Article 3. Ah, yes, I see a trial by jury. Cool. But I also have a few things to say about this specific article, so we'll be returning later. You see, in these articles, you haven't protected any of the rights that were infringed upon by the British. There's no freedom of speech or assembly. Or what about not allowing the government to quarter soldiers in your home? Or what about protecting the right to bear arms so people can defend themselves? Seriously, you are slower than a bowl of molasses. Oh, and that third article. Did you not think that the Supreme Court may just take a shitload of power for themselves? All they have to do is make a ruling, giving themselves the power to review the law, and boom, they are untouchable. I mean, I'm just speculating here, but the Supreme Court could literally just take power in the future, and in a couple hundred years, the American people will have to deal with a corrupt asshole named Clarence Thomas. Okay, let's take a step back. These criticisms were huge. You see, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay wrote a series of essays, 85 in total, called the Federalist Papers, which supported the Constitution and attempted to convince the American people, or those that were literate, why they should adopt the Constitution. Meanwhile, Robert Yates was writing Brutus. He attempted to convince the Americans that the Constitution would not work, and his points were so valid that he only needed to write 16 essays to get people on his side. By the way, he literally wrote in one of his essays about the Supreme Court taking power, which is literally what the Supreme Court did a few years later, after the Constitution was ratified. So we've established that the Constitution had some problems, and it wasn't going to be ratified with just the 7 articles. That's where the first 10 amendments come in, the Bill of Rights. The First Amendment protects freedom of speech, as we all know, but it also protects freedom of press, assembly, expression, and religion. The Second Amendment, again, as we all know, is the right to bear arms. Third states that the government cannot quarter soldiers in your home. Fourth protects you against unreasonable search and seizure. Let me just make a caveat real quick. None of these amendments, or articles for that matter, are as simple as I am making them out to be. They are all rather complicated and multifaceted, but I'm just going to give you the general gist of them. The Fifth Amendment, of course, is the right to remain silent, aka protects you from self-incrimination. But this is way more important than remaining silent. This amendment directly protects against the federal government taking away your rights without due process of law. The Due Process Clause is one of the most important clauses in this document. In general, the national government cannot take away your right to life, liberty, or property without going through a court or other processes first. They can't make blanket laws violating your rights. Notice how I said the national government. This only applies to the national government. The Supreme Court would decide that this did not apply to the states, which is why another due process clause appears in the 14th Amendment extending the application of the Constitution to the states. This whole thing is very complicated and requires its own video, but all I'll say is, technically, until 2011, states could have banned guns outright in their borders. Look up selective incorporation if you're interested. Where was I? The Sixth Amendment is your right to a speedy trial and describes other aspects of criminal trials. Seventh is all about civil trials. 8 protects you against excessive bails and fines. The Ninth Amendment protects the people's rights they have, even if they aren't listed in the Constitution. It's basically a catch-all clause. If you want to move to Ohio, open a coffee shop, and be gay, you can do so. You have that right, and even though it isn't explicitly listed in the Constitution, it is protected. The last amendment in the Bill of Rights is the Reserved Powers Clause. There haven't been many rights for the states yet, but that changes with this one. The 10th Amendment says that any power, not explicitly or implicitly, given to the national government is given to the state. There's nothing about education in the Constitution, therefore, the states have power over it. With this, the people were ready to ratify the Constitution. In 1788, the ninth state had ratified the Constitution with all the new amendments, and they were finally able to put the new government to the test. For the first decade, the President and Congress worked well together, as they wanted to show the people the government was working for them. It wasn't the insane shit show we have today. And well, the rest is history. We still have the Constitution today, albeit with quite a few more amendments.